Dumela Mamelwana. Lebelang. Well, good afternoon. Maybe you'll understand me when I speak in there. Sometimes I always want to make sure that I start with my mother's language. Because more often than not, people confuse me with my fellow counterparts from Cape Town. Just because of my complexion. So I always want to make very clear that I'm from the Mountain Kingdom. Well, Program Director, thank you very much. And of course, let me start by joining the first speakers. I wasn't here yesterday. I thought I would have been here when the event started, but circumstances took me by surprise. I had to report to the Public Accounts Committee as you know these positions that we are holding. You don't control yourself, but you get controlled somewhere. So I had to pass through Parliament before I get to Johannesburg. But here I am. Thank you very much. But let me join the previous speakers. I can see that Ngongi is celebrating 20 years of success. I want to join everybody to say congratulations. And of course, thank you very much for playing part in our development agenda in the region. But well, of course, just program director has introduced me. Other than being the Director General of the Ministry of Trade and Industry in Lesotho, I want to use the language that you understand here. In Lesotho, we are not called Director Generals, we are Principal Secretaries. Other than being that, I am a professional accountant. I am a chartered accountant in Lesotho, and I'm also a fellow certified chartered accountant of the United Kingdom, the ACCA-based qualification. And of course, before I joined the ministry or the government, I worked in industry as an accountant. And of course, later on, I worked in the leadership of the accountancy profession in Lesotho. First, I was the technical manager of the Lesotho Institute of Accountants. And in 2010, I assumed the position of the chief executive officer of that institute. So quite well what is discussed over the past 2 days until today, I'm quite conversant with, and it has been my agenda as well. So I can confidently rush to what my minister was called for here, which he asked me to come and present it on his behalf. Just to share with you the perspective of our agenda in the SADC region. Of course, Program Director has mentioned that SADC is a 15-member states organization, which in any case being a member organization, there are quite a lot of issues that are involved. And of course, today we are talking about the importance of well-structured and functional audit committees. How can they be of importance in driving our SADC agenda? Well, one would want to say, first, understand what SADC is. But let me bring it down to what the SADC Audit Committee and Finance Committee is. The first issue is how does that committee work? To oversee the programs on behalf of the member states. We invest a lot of monies, we invest a lot of skills, and a lot of other resources within the organization, which we want to say, how well are we doing as the regional organization? And that starts from the member states as individual countries. And of course, one would want to say in 2005, SADC had in place a regional indicative strategic development plan, which we said, how well can we improve? Basically, when we look at the issues of trade and industry development. How well can we do in developing our regional trade agenda? Let alone that SADC as a big organization, there are many more agendas within that. Security, finance, but we want to refocus our energy on how well can we improve our trade and investment within the region. So with that strategic plan, it covered such issues. We want to say, why is it necessary to be accountable as the SADC organization? One would want to say, you want to know what areas the SADC agenda covers under our finance and audit committees. We have the trade liberalization, which I've just mentioned earlier on, that one of the things that as a region we want to excel on or to improve on is developing and sustaining our trade and development issues within the region. And that, of course, in the end will influence the best or the mechanisms that will lead into the industrialization or industrial development within the region. And you will want to agree with me that it is quite very easy to trade with other regions of the world, Europe, America, but trade amongst Africa becomes a challenge. To transport commodities from Lesotho to Cameroon can be triple times expensive than to transport the same consignment to come to United States or to any country in Europe. Why is it necessary that as an organization we need to instill the element of accountability and of course continue to ensuring that our accountability mechanisms gets improved from day to day? I have already mentioned the resources. We have resources invested in SADC, and mainly the financial resources, which are the member states' financial inputs into the organization. And of course, not only the member states, but other strategic development partners which form part of us as SADC. We want to ensure that accountability, which will instill transparency and influence, an important aspect of proper and truthful reporting gets to life. The third issue is SADC, as I have mentioned, within it we have so many agendas. And of course we can mention the trade and industry, finance and investment, which forms part of some of the SADC agendas. Of course, which will be our key focus today to say, why is it necessary to be accountable? Because we can say we have got a lot of money, and of course my country has also contributed. Why should I be accountable? Where finances and other resources which do not belong to those who are given the stewardship role to oversee them, you have to account for such finances. So that's one of the things that we are saying. From the SADC perspective, we underscore the element that we have financial resources involved in the organization. And of course, we need to instill and enhance the element of accountability, transparency, and reporting. How can SADC Audit Committee assist in the sustainability of the organization? One would say the SADC Audit Committee should work closely with what I've previously mentioned, the trade and industry and finance and investment staff. The SADC management and the Council of Ministers in general. SADC structures, we have the summit, which is the heads of state and governments. And below that, we have an important level of Council of Ministers, which is mainly made up of ministers of trade and ministers of finance within the member states. Of course, those are the people who below them now they have the technical and senior officials, which are the director generals and the principal secretaries from the different member states who help to drive the SADC agenda. We want to know the most important areas where we can say the audit committee of SADC can cover. And of course, it is very important that one should understand that SADC as a regional integration or organization represents member states. And the agenda of SADC becomes agenda of individual member states. What my colleague from is it the Office of the Auditor General or Accountant General, the gentleman over there, on the elements or the part that talks about how can you make the clean audit alive and a sustainable issue in our member states. And of course, that can be drawn back to also to say, as SADC organization, how can we help to ensure that member states live up to what is expected? The audit committee of SADC oversees the reporting process. The issue of the internal control structures has been deliberated on over the past day and today, and we all agree that that forms part of our ingredients to say, how well can we do to ensure that we are a credible and sustainable organization? There are procedures for financial reporting. Of course, member states are at liberty to use any mechanisms that they can use in reporting. In Lesotho, we have just passed the Public Financial Management and Accountability Act, which makes reference to say the financial statements of the government of Lesotho should be presented or reported in line with the international public sector accounting standards. But of course, that doesn't take us out of what is the agenda of SADC. Our agenda as SADC region is to ensure that each member state or each government that forms part of SADC lives up to making the betterment life of its people. And you cannot achieve, you will all agree with me that you cannot achieve that if you are not accountable and if you are not transparent in all your activities and if you do not report truthfully. First, one issue is the monitoring of the integrity and appropriateness of the organization's financial statements, which includes, of course, compliance to applicable legal and regulatory requirements of the organization. So those are the main key areas that we are saying as the organization, the audit committee helps these organs that I've talked about, the summit, the Council of Ministers, and the Commission to effectively follow up and implement the resources that have been invested in the organization. Of course, one area is to review the accounting policies, the practices, which include, among others, how the financial statements are prepared. How do we follow up with the interim audits, the issue of the internal audit, and of course, the external audit. How well can we follow through what has been raised as the audit concerns, and how well can we say from year to year we have been able to address such issues? That's the work of the audit committee within the SADC Secretariat to ensure that we look and ensure that issues that have been raised by the auditors are addressed. And of course, one would want to say who audits this organization. SADC, just like other regional organizations such as SACU, are audited by the member states' offices of Auditor Generals. And it is at liberty if the Auditor General responsible at that time to audit this organization can actually get the assistance of the local member states' private auditors. And of course, that brings me back to an important issue to say, what role are we playing as the profession to ensure that, one, we align ourselves to the regional agenda? Secondly, how well are we doing to help our governments to be accountable and responsible to the taxpayers as shareholders of the government? So it is also very important that as profession, we cannot keep ourselves away and say, no, that's a politician's issue. Because in the end, we are going to be asked, but you watched, who was more better off to understand what should be done than yourselves or the politicians? So it is an important issue that as a profession, we should keep our eye in the close. And it is not anything wrong to say, I want to play a part. The gentleman who spoke about the port or the ingredients to the road or the path to the clean audit talked about competencies. How well do we do to retain and attract the right skills to help us drive these issues? Where will be the accountants in that? Accountants are well known to say, no. On my nice suit, I don't want to find myself closer to the politicians. When I got appointed to this position, if I can share you, the first resistance I got from my friends and colleagues, they said, how can you accept to go closer to these politicians? They're going to corrupt you. For how long should we say we want to stay back and join the media to say how bad our governments are doing when we can influence and lead? I like the slogan of my fellow counterparts, South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, which says, we develop, we influence, but ultimately we lead. So you cannot lead behind the curtains. You lead by joining the boardroom. Well, of course, the evaluation of the design, effectiveness of controls, and many more other issues forms part of that. The review and evaluation and recommendation of budgets forms part of the audit committee of SADC. Well, this takes me to my last slide, which, of course, covers back what I have already mentioned, and of course, what has been mentioned and talked about over the past 2 days, which says the audit committee can assist by doing what or in what ways. But in this case, we are saying, how can the audit committees assist in instilling financial accountability in the SADC region? And of course, as I mentioned, when I talk about the SADC region, I do not look at SADC as an organization alone. I look at SADC as an organization which is unpacked. SADC, Lesotho, Republic of South Africa, Republic of Zambia, Republic of Zimbabwe, then you will understand what SADC is. Because we always make the biggest mistake to say we want to look at SADC as an isolated organization which is far away from us. Whatever is an agenda in the SADC, it's our agenda in our member states. Of course, how do we fully implement the terms of references? Previous speakers talked about understanding our roles. If you understand your roles, you'll be in a position to understand my role on that other side. And of course, the last speaker, just before I came in, talked about the relationship, which was in this case talking about the municipalities and the provincial governments. The relationship that you make between your municipalities and the Office of Accountant General. There's no way you can drive the municipality without knowing what the Office of Accountant General requires you to do. And of course, in the end, what the Office of Auditor General also requires you to have in place when he comes in the next month or so to say, I need to audit this municipality. So that reiterates back to say, this is a process, it is not an event. It starts from day one when you join that organization until the last day when you leave that organization. But whatever you do remains the ongoing process, which eventually becomes what we can report on. Of course, the other issue is the establishment, overseeing and the reviewing of procedures and retention of information within the organization, clearly setting out the agenda of the organization, of course, which this reflects on what we call the reporting. Any process that we start, it is always advisable and always very important to say, if I have started this process, what will be the end result of this process? In this case, we want to say the ultimate result is coming up with a report that all member states will get to be represented and think that they have all been taken on board to say, as a SADC organization, we have lived up to what is expected. Program director, I had thought that I will want to talk more about the organization at large. But of course, looking at the time, I do not want to spoil the evening of the participants. When I look around this hall, I see people who are tired. They've been exhausted for the past day or so. But of course, in a nutshell, we wanted to say, from where we stand as government of Lesotho and part of SADC, when we were invited to come on board on this event, to share what we have as experience on the development agenda of SADC, we thought we could come up with something just to highlight on a high level to say what is SADC and what are the mechanisms that we are using in the organization to ensure that the organization continues to serve member states. And of course, aligning ourselves to the theme of this event. We want to empower you to succeed. And you can only be empowered to succeed. Can you hear me? You can only be empowered to succeed when you are shared or given information that you may have known or you may not have known. But even though you may have known that information, it's important to keep on hammering it once more again to say, what are we here for as human beings? What are we here for as professionals? It's to serve our poor fellow citizens to live a better life. And with these remarks, Program Director, I want to close my presentation by thanking everybody to have been so attentive. I have never seen an audience which is so attentive like this one. And of course, once again, let me go back and say, as a professional accountant and part of your agenda as accounting profession in the region, we want to thank Ngongi for continuing to make it. And we want to, of course, say continue doing it. From the government of Lesotho, once minister has said, I support, we have nothing to say other than to say, if we want to support, let's do it by action. And that's why I drove from Maseru at 5 p.m. yesterday and arrived here around 8 or 9 or so, just to grace this event to say, from the perspective of governments, not only SADC, we want to support our fellow professional accountants when they are joining us in driving our agenda to instill, improve accountability, transparency, and reporting. And I want to say thank you very much. God bless you.